What's up, everybody? Welcome to The Rewind, where we break down the Sunday morning sermon here at City of Light Church. I'm Derek.
I'm Maggie.
And I'm Dina. And this week we are continuing our series, Functional Family. And our topic is naked and afraid.
Naked!
Right. So before we get too ominous here, I had an opening question for you all, which was, what were the TV families that you grew up watching and saying like, oh, that is the perfect family? Because I can think of a few examples from my childhood,
Perfect.
like what you would consider a functional family.
Oh, okay. Functional.
What's up, everybody?
And you too.
Let us know you're there. Give us a wave. Give us a high five. Give us a peace.
Tell
Let
us your
know.
favorite.
What was your favorite growing up sitcom or family sitcom or cartoon or whatever family that stuck out to you growing up? Let us know. Put it in the chat.
Yeah. I think for me, I remember I watched a lot of Full House. I watched a lot of, I think my favorite family was like the Family Matters family, the Winslows. I was like, I want a dad like Carl, and I want like a neighbor like Steve, even though he was kind of annoying. Like, I wanted an Urkel to just come on by and say hi. Like, did I do that? And I just, it was like, it was so nice. It was like, oh, like they went through some stuff, but I was like, that's a cool family.
He was always there to be a goofball.
Right.
What about you, Dina?
Okay. I also watched Full House, but I think the family that stood out the most was Arthur's family, and then also like the community that was built in the show with his friends, and then the way that those parents treated them, I thought was interesting too. That dynamic. Yeah, but yes, Arthur.
Nice.
I mean, I can think of a lot of like sitcom families, but like not ones that I can really say I sat down and watched and was like, yeah, that's it. But the one show I always remember that I loved watching whenever it came on, I could still watch it to this day, is Hey Arnold. And it was kind of weird because his family was a little unorthodox, because it was like his parents were gone. He lived with his grandparents who owned a boarding house, who had all these random people from different places that lived there. But like throughout the seasons of the show, you could see them growing together, coming together as a family, even though it was unorthodox. They would have holidays together. They would eat together. They would do stuff together. And he would learn different lessons with each person from the boarding house. And I just thought it was like a dope, even though it seemed like dysfunctional, it definitely seemed like a dope experience for all of them, because they were learning from each other, and they were going together, even though they were from different places and they were different people and they weren't actually their actual family. But it was definitely, I liked watching it because it had like, you could see kind of the different personalities and experiences, everything in like this.
Yeah, it's definitely a multicultural show. I remember.
Yeah.
I loved Arrow. It was so good. And the reason I asked that question is because I think oftentimes we see, families on TV. Maybe this was just back in my childhood, but everything kind of wrapped up nicely at the end of one episode or two, if it was, a special thing. And I just remember remembering that, like, that's not really how families are.
Right.
Like, you don't just like communicate and solve all your conflict in one episode. And I think that's kind of what we're talking about today is, dealing with grief and shame and all these other hard things about families. So saying that, let's go look at our first.
So God asks us questions so that instead of hiding, instead of running, it's so that we can deal with our nakedness, so that we can deal with our shame. Now, shame it's rooted in the belief, watch this, that we lack worth or value. So if I was to kind of give you the difference between guilt and shame, guilt is, I did something wrong. I did something bad. I did something horrible. Shame says, I am horrible. I am bad. As if my value now, my identity has shifted from being created and formed and shaped in the image and the likeness of God to all of a sudden now I'm such of a deplorable person that there is no more hope for me. That's what shame does.
The clip was good. It really made me kind of reflect on myself, especially when he talked about guilt versus shame. You know what I'm saying? Dealing with depression, low self-esteem, wanting to fit in with whoever I could fit in with. You know what I'm saying? It makes me really realize, like, wow, I'm not the trash that's piled on top of me. Like, I might have a whole bunch of trash on top of me, but that's not who I am. And a lot of the times I would get caught up in thinking this is what people see me as, so this is who I am. Not realizing that I don't have to stay under it. You know what I'm saying? And it's really, it's crazy, because it's like we get so caught up in that pile of trash that's on top of us and never really give ourselves a chance to shake it off. We never allow God in so we can hand it to him and be like, God, here's my trash. Can you help me? Can you reveal to me who I really am? Can you help me be me? You know what I'm saying? Because all I thought I was this trash. But now I realize that this is what you sent Jesus for. Because I'm not this trash. I might have thought I was, but I'm not. I can remove it. I can stand up and I can be like, you know what? That's not me. All of this from generation to generation, all of this sin that I've been carrying on my back, that have been passed down and passed down and passed down from who knows who, and I've been trying to carry it. I don't have to carry it, and I don't have to have that pressure on me from walking with all of this anxiety, all of this anger, all of this frustration that I hardly know the roots of. But God, I thank you that your Son put it on and got on that cross and was like, here, I'll take it for you. So now every day I can get up and be like, here you go. But that's my choice. And I have to decide to get up and make that choice every day and say, here you go, God. Because I'm not that. That's not who I am. This is what my flesh says I am, but it's not who I am. This is what the generations and generations says I am, but it's not who I am. So God, here you go. And help tell me who I am, God, so I can walk in that and not walk underneath this, because I don't want to die under this trash. Because if I die under this trash, nobody's going to really know who I am and who I can be.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that's, that is why we become part of God's family when we say yes to Jesus, when we choose him as Lord, because we get a new inheritance. We don't inherit the trash of the world and the sin of our family, and it doesn't have to hold us down to death anymore. Jesus resurrected that. And, I think about what you're saying, Derek, that we don't always know where it was rooted from, where it came from. In the sermon, Pastor Brian talked about Adam and Eve, and he asked them, who told you were naked? Because they started to feel shame the moment they disobeyed God. And like Pastor Brian said, like this all-knowing God, he didn't ask the question because God didn't know the answer, but he wanted Adam and Eve to acknowledge the harm that they committed and to own up to the guilt and to not have to feel the shame. But I was just thinking about how God asks us those questions too, right? like who told you were trash? Like who told you these things, and why did you start to believe them? Yeah. So it's something I was thinking about.
Yeah, I'm just going to go off of what you said, Maggie. I think that's really good. I think that we don't think God asks us questions, but God is asking us questions. Yeah. And then it makes you own up to your guilt and to your shame. It leads you to the root of why do you believe those things about yourself? Why do you think you're not good enough? Why do you think you can't do it? Why do you, like all those things. And so, yeah, Adam and Eve, that was the first family, right? That was the first human dysfunctional family that we witnessed. And yeah, it goes to show that, it's real and those feelings are real. But again, like what you were saying, Derek, we don't have to be burdened by that. We don't have to believe that we are horrible. What I did was horrible. What they did was horrible. Yeah. Yeah. Like, if I could go back in time and slap that apple out, I would. Yeah.
But would we have did the same thing?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right? Would we have done the same things, and would we have felt the same way?
Yeah. So it's like we can never play the blame game. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that's been with me recently. It's like we can't play that game. Like, I can't blame my dad. You know what I'm saying? Like, I might have had a rough upbringing. You know, it might have been hard to connect with him. It might have been hard to have a relationship with him because he was so stern. He was so, you know, and I can't blame my mom, you know, and I can't blame my brothers. I can't, like, I could, and we do.
Right.
And we choose to blame, and now that I'm grown, I could blame my wife. I could blame my kids. My kids are all over the place. They drive me nuts, and I'm frustrated, and I'm angry, and it's their fault. No, it's not. There's something in me. I have to make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what they did at that time. If you remember going back, I don't know if Pastor Brian went over it, but Adam blamed Eve. Eve blamed the devil.
Yeah.
You know, like it went on. Like,
Yeah.
this isn't a blame game. What we have to do, and that's what I thank God for Jesus. Like we were talking about, is like, I don't have to blame Dina for making me mad. It wasn't Dina. It was what's in me. God, help me deal with what's in me, so that I don't have to keep reacting the way that I'm reacting. You know what I'm saying? Yes, it might be something unknown that I passed down, and it's something. No, God, I'm gonna get this to you because I can't deal with it, and that's why I thank God for Jesus, because it's just like, I know it's cliche to say that, but it's really like He's that help that we need and that we know we need. I can't deal with this on my own. If I didn't have God in my life, I would continuously cuss my kids out. I would continuously be a bad husband. I would continuously be selfish. But because I have God in my life, I'm able to be like, God, I'm able to take that breath and be like, I don't want to be that trash that's on top of me. You know what I'm saying? God, help me to stand up out of this trash and be something better. You know, and I just thank God that we don't have to bear those burdens, you know, of dealing with all that stuff. Yeah. And I think the other story that he got into was talking about Noah.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting because you never really hear that story of Noah. You know what I'm saying? You hear
Like,
about
it's
you hear
there.
about
Right.
you hear about Noah
And the ark.
The ark.
the ark. Noah was obedient and he got all the animals on the ark, and he saved he saved humanity, saved the animals, and
The rainbow.
but then got right off of that mug and was like, you know what, I'm gonna crack this bottle open real quick, and got drunk. Like drunk, like embarrassing drunk, like so drunk that his kid walked in and seen him and was like, I need to go tell somebody. You know what I'm saying? And the other ones, he got so drunk, the other ones didn't even want to look at him. They were like, oh, let's just cover him in this way.
Mm-hmm.
And then he got up and he was like, he was so drunk, he got up and cursed the son. Like, you the one got drunk. How come he's cursed? So, but now, listen, maybe I'm in the wrong. So my question is, who is really in the wrong in this situation? Because it's like, everybody did something. That's what Pastor Brian was talking about.
Yeah.
He was talking about how everybody played a role. And we've been everybody in this situation.
Yeah.
Who was really wrong in this
But
situation?
I think though, Derek, like we said with Adam and Eve, it's like you can't really blame people
Right.
for making
Exactly.
the
Just a
decisions
circle
that
of
they
blame.
did. Yep. Because you
Yeah.
are one of those people at whatever part of your life you're in. You were one of those people.
Right.
Mhm.
And then to be in that situation and okay, this person made this decision, you can't blame them because maybe they had, their own reasoning for making those decisions. And how would I have reacted? Would have been the same way.
Right.
Yeah, because I look at it like if I'm and I walk in on my dad, drunk, butt naked, laying on the ground, my first thought isn't gonna turn around, back up, and put a blanket on him. I'm walking out like, bro, did you see Dad? Like I'm not trying to like snitch or nothing, but like, did you see what's going on in there? And then
Yeah.
they go in and they're like, okay, put the blanket on him, and he gets up, and now he's cursed because he didn't know. I would have probably got cursed too because I wouldn't know what to do. I would have
Mhm.
That's tripping. Like I wouldn't have known. Like so, it's just like like you said, you can't play the blame game. Thank God for God's grace because He covers all of the situation.
Yeah.
Everybody in the situation did something that probably was no good.
Y'all have something?
I would just add something that I think on the other side of shame is greatness. And that, we can't fool ourselves into not being very aware that evil has a bullseye. They see an attack on us to stop us from what God has us to do. And so if we live in that cage of shame, it's really difficult, if not impossible, to walk in the greatness that God, created us to do. And so I think as you're feeling some of those thoughts and beliefs or images related to shame, also remind yourself that there's something great right now that's trying to emerge. And let me just stay grounded in that.
Yeah, I love Abby. I love that quote that she said that on the other side of shame is greatness. And I think that's so true, even as I'm thinking about, the genealogy of Jesus and the family and the people that were his ancestors, like from Mary all the way back. It's crazy if you ever look at it. And I think God did that so intentionally to show that, after all these broken families, all these broken people, for generations and generations and generations waiting for a king, that Jesus came. Jesus was that greatness. He was the light to renew and to resurrect all that garbage, right?
Right.
All the things that went on in his family line, and I think that just gives us hope as his followers and believers that we get the same opportunity, right? And I just love that image of
It's
family.
I agree, Maggie. It almost feels like through all of that there is redemption for families.
Right.
Right? Like through all these broken generations and the lineage that led up to Jesus, it's like when Jesus came, there is redemption for all of the brokenness that came before that. Yeah. I think that's really powerful. And I thank God for that as well, because man, where would we be and who would we be, right?
Right.
I mean, it's definitely, like when you pointed out, like it's definitely God's hand.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because there's a few scriptures in the Bible where specifically relates Adam to Jesus, and says Adam did this, but then Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So it's almost like, okay, God, so was this your plan to draw us to you? To show us that we need you. You know what I'm saying? Because it was like there was something about that moment where sin came in, and then like you said, through all those generations and generations, it's like he's building up to Jesus. Like it wasn't on accident. Like it was literally a build-up. All of these generations, all of a sudden, here comes Jesus, and now it's like, okay, now God finally shows us who He really is and what He really wants, and He wants our heart. And if we aren't broken, will we not be willing to give Him our heart? If we know we didn't need help, would we be willing to love Him? You know what I'm saying? And I think that's the thing, is like God wants you to be able to choose. Like, do you choose to love me? Because I want to see that you choose. I don't want to God doesn't want. Adam and Eve were walking in the garden and knew nothing of anything but this is what we do.
Yeah.
This is what we do because this is what God created us to do. They didn't have a choice. But now God allows something to happen. Now something happens, and now it's your choice. And God asked the question. He asked the question, like, Adam, where are you? I'm still here. So don't allow your shame to take you away from the position that I put you in. So yes, stuff might happen, but I'm still here, and I want you to choose my love. I don't want you to choose shame.
But understand, those thoughts come from different influences. But we have the power. I love what LaToya said, that you have a choice. And the moment that you give away your choice to your emotions, you've already lost.
Yes.
But God has given us the power and the authority to take every single thought captive.
Yes.
And say, you will not flow freely through my mind.
Yes.
You will not affect my day. You will not affect my life. You will not destroy my destiny. You have the power to do that.
Yes.
You have the power to do that.
So before this clip, Pastor Brian was talking about, how he would be at work, and there are people that would just casually say, this team sucks, or I hate this, or whatever. And then suddenly, your thoughts start allowing you to think those things, right? Like, oh yeah, like this sucks, or I suck. And he was rebuking it as that was happening. And I feel like it's so true that all these outside things can influence your thoughts. And so when he said that, I was thinking about memes. Okay, I was thinking about memes. Like you're scrolling on social media, and you'll see all these memes.
Yeah.
And it's meant to be funny. It's meant to be relatable. It's funny because it's relatable. But it gets into your head sometimes that okay, well, this is just what my life is, or this is just who I am.
Oh, that's good.
Right? And so there are some times where I need to get off social media.
Yeah.
I need to stop scrolling. I need to start looking at content, just because not all of it is going to allow you to think highly of yourself. Not all of it is going to allow you to know the truth about yourself. It's going to tell you, oh, well, this is just all that you are. This is all that life is. God has nothing more for you than than this, right? And so that's immediately what I thought too when he said that, is like, there are so many influences and you have to be in your word, because if you're not, you don't know who you are. And that's when you sit in that pile of trash, and that's where you think you are part of that,
Right.
that trash.
Right. And I think it's, when we don't know the word, we don't know the truth that that God has given us about our identity and who we are in Christ. We can't combat those voices. We can't rebuke anything because we just don't know, or we can't even compare or contrast or check the things that people are throwing at us if we don't have that instilled in our mind, instilled in our hearts. Because your thoughts will change your behaviors, and your behaviors will affect your thoughts. So it's a cycle of checking your emotions, knowing what you're doing, knowing what you're thinking on, and saying, is that actually true? And then going to God, like, God, what does your word say? Does this line up with your word? Does this line up with what you're saying about me and who you say I am? And if it doesn't, then you can rebuke it. You can just say, no, like, that's not me. Like, that's not my life. That's not my legacy. That's not who I am. And it takes practice. It takes practice to do that consistently, especially like you said, Gina, the longer we spend time on our phones and looking at other people's lives and comparing ourselves to the things we see around us in our culture, the things other people say we are, we start to just like sit in that. We just and like let it absorb, and we shouldn't let it absorb. We need to clean it off. We need to give it to Jesus. Like, not mine,
Right.
not mine.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, it's like it's validating. A lot of stuff tries to validate your mediocre feelings towards things. Like, it's funny, it's relatable, like you said, but there's no growth there. And it's just, there might be some transparency. There might be, there might be some, like you said, like relatable. We can relate to it. It's funny, but it doesn't encourage me to grow or to move on from that point. So now I just kind of accept it. No, that's good. And especially, like me, like I felt like growing up, I always had some sort of like weird conscience. Like I said, I never grew up in church, but I always grew up like with this weird, like, this don't feel right. Like stuff, like I was like, I don't know. But I would just go along with stuff that my friends were doing just because I didn't have anything else to go off of, like Maggie said. And when I finally, when I was 19 and I finally got into church and got into the word for myself, and I started reading and I started getting to know God for myself, it started to validate that consciousness that I had with me the whole time. And it started giving me, now I have fuel for that.
Right.
I never had fuel for it before. So now, so because I wasn't fueling that consciousness, it was my depression being fueled, my self-esteem, my low self-esteem. So now I'm trying to fit in. I'm trying to keep up. I want to do what they're doing because it's cool. Or because they said it, that's what I want to do. Or because they said this about me, this is who I want to be. I want to pretend to be this.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I finally, to this day, I'm still slowly figuring out who Derek really is.
Yeah.
And continuing to just allow myself to understand, like, you don't have to be that for the people. You don't have to do that because they think it's cool. You don't have to do that because that's who they want you to be. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, now I'm growing, I got my own family, I got my own wife, I got my own kids. Now it's like, okay, I got to live for myself and live to because I'm responsible for them. And they don't need me to be a phony. They need me to be me. God help me to be the best me I can be each and every day. I think that's real, and I think this conversation is real, and I just hope everybody out there is able to get that understanding. Like, social media, people at work, your friends, even your family are going to try and fuel your flesh. They're going to try to fuel your feelings about yourself, and they're going to try and that's going to be what you eat off of, what you run off of. If that's what's in your gas tank, that's what you're going to run off of. But if you combat it, you don't allow that to get in there, and you start to feed it with God's word, if you start to feed it with prayer, if you start to feed it with encouraging yourself to understand I'm God's creation, I'm not the world's creation. You start to fuel your tank with that, that's what you're going to start to run off of. And when you get more consistent with it, it now becomes more of a way of living for you, where you can be like, you know what? I don't have to be depressed because God, I gave that to you, and I'm fueling my tank with your word. I'm fueling my tank with your love. I'm fueling my tank with your grace and mercy. Even though I might have made a mistake, I understand that I'm not that mistake. So you out there, you are not that mistake that you just made before you turn this on. You're not that mistake that you just made yesterday. You are what God says you are. You are victorious. You are loved. You are created on purpose, with a purpose. And somebody out there needs to hear your story and wants to hear your story. So stop fueling yourself with what the world says and fuel yourself with what God says. I hope this conversation was a blessing to you. I hope you have an amazing night and hope you have an amazing weekend. We'll see you next week. God bless.